Hey, this is Paul Payton with Focal Splash, and today I'm going to take you through this composite step by step, stroke by stroke, and rebuild it for you. The first thing I'd like to show you is the parts I used to create this composite. Nice little picture of a little boy here. This bear from Adobe stock. I purchased it because I really liked the way it looked. There are resources where you can get free stock photos like Pexels and Pixabay. I'll put some links in the description for that. And this tree stump is from Pixel Squid, and it is a 3D model. You can spin it around, and I'll show you that too. So let's get started. Alright, so the first thing I like to do is create a nice big canvas. Let's go to File, New, and I like to create 300 ppi 14 by 11. And we can crop that to any size we want. And so here we have this big old blank canvas. And what I'm going to do is go to this libraries thing from Adobe and grab the bear. And I'm just going to grab them and drag them in here. Alright, that brings them into the project as a smart object. And that's exactly what I want. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and grab this edge. If you hold down the Alt and then the Shift key and grab the corner, it will transform around the center, around the point wherever you put that point. And so I think that's going to be big enough. It is not. So I'm just going to grab the Shift key this time and just grow like that. And then I think I'm going to put him basically right in the center. So we have a rule of thirds look. He won't quite meet the rule of thirds, but with the child here, I think it'll be a good composition. And then hit enter on that. So we have the bear in place. What a cutie, right? To make the bear a little more cute, increase the size of the bear's eye, and we're going to do that in liquify. So filter, liquify here. I actually use the Command Shift X to get in liquify. And then with the bloat tool, actually let's zoom in just a little bit first. Alright, and with the bloat tool, we're just going to get a pretty good size here and just tap a few times, making the eye bigger than natural. And we do that so that the bear looks just a little more friendly and humanized. So a little cartoony, but that's kind of what we're going for. That's too big. Okay, so then okay on that. And you can see before and after, the bear's eyes are quite a bit bigger, but will look better in the composite and nicer to the subject. Alright, so we'll do a little bit more work on the eye, and I'm going to create a new layer above the bear and change it into a soft light layer. Right, and you can fill that with gray and it won't change the image. I'm just going to leave it plain right there and zoom into the eye here. And I'm going to, on this layer, hit D, and that'll change these to the default colors. And then X, I want to paint with the white. Hit B for the brush tool. And just painting right in here. We're going to take some of that. Make the brush a little smaller. Get a little bit of detail there. Just shaping the eye a little bit. And with the black, so I hit X and it changes to black. Make the brush just a little smaller. Zoom in even a little bit more. We've got plenty of detail here. Right along the outside edge. Just like that. And right around this highlight. Like that. Zoom right in here. And then with the hitting X again with white. Just gonna paint with a lower opacity. So I'm gonna hit 2 and change that to 20%. And just brighten this eye up a little bit. and then hit X to go on the black and make that pupil a little lower here. Just something like that. So now, when you zoom out, it's going to be a pretty small detail, but a little more cartoony. You don't want a real bear sitting there with the kid, right? So on a layer, I'm going to make a layer in between these two real quick, and I'm just going to use the healing brush, holding Alt, picking right here and dropping it right here on this. Just heal up that little spot right there. It probably wouldn't be noticeable at all in the image, but here we are making a tutorial and taking a long time to do simple little things. Alright, so I like that. That's looking pretty good. Alright, so back zoomed out. I hit Command 0 and that makes it fill up the whole screen. Alright, next we're going to use Pixel Squid, and I'm going to grab this stump from Pixel Squid right here and just click on it. And there it is. Use high resolution and then just click here and move it around the way we want it. Alright, like that should do it. Alright. And then embed a smart object. And then we can just close this panel. Alright, and so we have the move tool selected and we just move it down here. I think something like that. And then Control T and make it a little bit bigger. Hit enter on that. So we've got the stump there. And now it's time to get the child. Alright, here is the child. And I'm just going to zoom in. And with the quick select tool, I'm going to try to do this real quick here. This isn't going to be a quick selection tool tutorial for you. There are other tutorials that will teach that, but this just gives you an example of how the quick select tool would work. Okay, then we go into selected mask. Then I'm going to just zoom in with the quick select tool selected, and sometimes in selected mask the quick select tool actually works better. I hit X. There's ways to use the opacity to see if you're missing something, but I prefer to tap X, and that shows me that I'm missing something, so you can see what's there, and it just works better for me. Hit R here. That's going to bring up the refine edge tool. See if we can't just get some of his hair there. Alright, so X, oh boy, his whole knee is missing. And that's the way I do it. Scroll down here a little bit, you see output to new layer with layer mask, and just hit OK on that. Creates a new layer with the layer mask turned on, so we actually have all that information still there. And now you can see maybe a little bit of refining here with the brush tool set to black, painting on the layer mask at 100%. Just refine this a little bit. There may be some touch-ups we can do when we put him in the background, but for now, I think that's a pretty good selection. I'm going to hit V for the move tool and grab it up here and put him right in there. Alright, so he's looking the wrong way. So Control T, holding down the Control key, clicking horizontal, and I'd like him to sit nicer on the stump. Like that, about right there, and he's looking at the bear, and the bear is looking at him. He's got his little doggy friend with him, and we're done. So that's how you composite. Or maybe there's some things we can do better, right? Sometimes I like to zoom in and then go like that so I can see what I'm working with. First thing I want to do here is go ahead and change the color of this rock. See, the rocks back here have a tanner look to them, and this just isn't fitting in right now. So I'm going to go ahead and create a color layer right above this and call it color. Clicking Alt here, grabbing this color and painting over. There we go. I like it. Okay, so let's organize a little bit here. We've got the bear in the background, and we've got this layer here, which is the spot on the bear. We also have the eye of the bear here, so we'll bring that down, and then we'll put these two in a group with the bear. I hit Shift and select all three, and then hit Control G, put them in a group called BEAR. Alright, here's the stump, and we change the color of the rock for the stump. We're going to take these two, put them in a group, and call it Stump. Just like that. There we go. So we have the boy on this layer, hit Control G, put him in his own group, call him boy. Alright, so we're just a little more organized here. Alright, the next thing I see is the color of the boy. Doesn't match the scene and the lighting exactly, so he wasn't in a foresty scene like this. So what we're just going to do is real quick, we're going to put a color layer over the top of the image, and that will help blend the entire image together. But what color will we use? Alright, so we can go down to the layer here where the bear is and hit Control J, and that will make a copy of that layer. And let's bring it all the way to the top, just right above the boy there. So there it is. Next thing we're going to do is, it's already a smart object, so we should just be able to put on there a filter, blur, and then average. What it does is it averages the colors of the entire scene together into one color. The next thing would be to turn this to a color layer. Just like that. So what it's doing is it's making every color in the image the same average color for over the whole image. Now that's not really what we want, but if we drop the opacity down to 0, we get back to where we were. If we bring it up to 100, we have it all the same color. So we find a place in between. So here's 50, and that kind of gives a really kind of a nice color to everything. It's almost a black and white image, you know, with some color in it, very desaturated looking. But if we bring it down to about 25, I find that 25 works really good for this. What it'll do is it'll just put the color of the scene over everything again. So if we turn it off and turn it back on, you can see the difference in color, and I really like the way that looks. So there we have that. The next thing I want to do is take a look at the boy here. We changed his color a little bit. There's a bunch of ways to change color. That's just for this image. This is the way I chose to do it. There's color matching, and you can create a curves adjustment layer and put it over there. You can create a color balance adjustment layer and put it over the top of them and mess with the color balance there. But he looks really good right now with just that layer over the top of him. So a little bit more with the boy. Right click right on there, and what we want to do is below him, if you hold the Control key and click this new layer icon, it'll put a layer below. If you just click it without the Control key, it'll put a layer above it. So really, you put a layer above it and then drag it down, or just hold the Control key and put a layer below. It's really just a shortcut. So underneath him, let's go ahead and paint with a black brush. So I've got that tan brush selected. I'm just going to hit D and make it a black brush, and then I changed my mind. I want to make it a not quite black brush, something like that. It's just not quite black. And underneath him, we're gonna just get really close to him. I'm gonna zoom in so you can see what I'm doing here. And right underneath that layer, we're just gonna paint right along the edge, just wherever a shadow would be, falling really close to him though. We're not going too far away from him. Alright, so just anywhere you think he's either touching, it's a contact shadow, or if you think you can just go ahead and draw the shadow where his foot would be. And here there would be quite a bit of shadow, just like this. Alright. No one would see much shadow on that side of him. It would be hidden by him. So, something like that, with a brush that's not quite black. And I'm going to hit the E key with a soft, pretty soft brush here. I'm going to just erase this. I don't normally erase. I like to layer mask stuff out, but yeah, something like that, something like that. All right, and then just to adjust the opacity until you like it, just down a little bit, 80 something, that looks good. And so we have the beginnings of his shadow. Let's just zoom in right here. Let's put a little more right here and over here. Okay, so then create another layer and call this ambient shadow. All right, change this to shad. All right, so on the ambient shadow, we make the brush bigger, put the opacity back to 3, and this is going to be because he's blocking some of the light and not all of the light. All right, because that would happen too. Just kind of around there, wherever you think that his shadow would fall. All right, we're gonna put a light source over here, so his shadow is going to be falling in this direction, and something like that. So I think we've got a pretty good beginning for the shadows underneath him. And I'm going to leave that for now, and I'm going to zoom in down here, and we're going to work on underneath the boy. I kind of jumped ahead. Go back to the stump layer, and on a layer just above the stump layer, we're going to create a new layer and use the clone stamp tool. And on this current and below, I don't want to add those shadows. So if I used all layers like this, if I were to clone stamp from here, it would clone stamp with the shadows intact. But if I choose current and below, then when I clone stamp from here, the shadows aren't there. That's a pretty cool thing to know. All right, and so just grabbing here, I'm going to clone stamp this in. Just want to add some of this ground cover. I like it more than the bare ground cover that's there. Just going to cover it up. This ground cover is pretty much going to be covered up by little dark vignette type things anyway. So there we have that. And selecting here, Alt key, holding it down, and just selecting that. Alright, and I have align turned off. So each time I pick up the brush and put it down, it's still selecting from the same place. So it's going to cause repeated patterns possibly, but it prevents the tool from running over itself. And it's not that hard to get rid of repeated patterns. Just going to make the brush a little bigger. I'm going to select from right here and make it a little faster here. I think just something like this. I'll leave that rock there. Basically got the ground declutterized. I'm going to hit clone stamp from right here, holding Alt, choosing the tip of that rock, and coming over here and putting it down. I want those rocks over here. You really shouldn't be able to see that. Zooming in just a little bit, making it a little smaller, and since I put the tip of the rock there already, just want to fill in this a little bit and this right here a little bit. And then I think that's good. I'm going to hit E just to remove this right here. Remove this grass here. All right. Okay, and like I was zoomed in here, I noticed something. You may or may not be able to see it in the video, but there's this line right here. Where'd that string come out in the woods? Okay, what that line is from the boy. It's from his layer mask. So sometimes that happens, quite often actually. So we're going to select boy, and we're going to click his layer mask. I'm holding the Alt key and tap on his layer mask like that. This is just something I've noticed before, and it pops up again and again. So with a black brush, I'm just going to click here, at 100%, click there, and I'm going to hold the Shift key, and that'll draw a straight line. It didn't work, but now it should. Okay. And draw a straight line across there, and draw a straight line across there. That's because even though you guys might think I'm an artist, I'm not really an artist. Okay, my keys are not working because I'm recording. Alright, so if I draw a straight line, it looks something like that. So that's not that great. Alright, I'm going to just leave that line there because it's not really getting rid of anything. And then just click on your layer like that again, and those lines are going to be gone. So anytime you layer mask something in, drag it from another layer, sometimes you might end up with those lines, and you'll have to do that to get rid of them. So we have the ground clutter fixed. I think that'll work. And we have the boy there sitting on a stump. Looks good. And a lot of compositors would stop right there. Got the shadow here, which doesn't look that great, but we're going to darken in some things and fill it in better. And the composition is not that great, so let's go ahead with the crop tool. And I'm going to crop it as a 5x7. It's my favorite crop. And bring it in just about like that. I think, see the angle here with the boy here and the bear here, and they're both in the middle here, and it's got a little bit going on over here. We're going to add some light rays coming in here. This is going to be dark. I think that's going to be a good composition. So just going to hit enter on that. And there we go. It's one of the reasons why to start with a really big canvas, so you can crop and you'll still have plenty of pixels to print a huge image. Alright, so I think that's looking really good. Next I want to do is above the boy, I'm going to put a photo filter above this. So clicking on that, just create an adjustment layer and choose photo filter, and it did warm it up a little bit. And I'm going to choose color here, and I just want it a little more orange than that. So darken it up a little bit like that and hit OK. That gives it a little more warm feeling, a little more orange instead of green. Control 0, make it nice and big. Okay, then we're going to start working on darkening things down. I'm just going to grab a curves adjustment layer and bring it down. See what we get. And I'm thinking that's a little too dark. Alright, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and take this curves adjustment layer and bring it down below the boy, below the stump, right above the bear, something like that. Okay, and what that did was that curves adjustment layer is only being applied to the bear and to the background back there now. And it lightens up the foreground a little bit. And I wanted the bear darker, just a darker color. We're going to lighten the bear up some with the dodge and burn here in a moment. But I think I really like that. And it gives the woods a darker look back there. The next thing I'm going to do is do a little dodging and burning. So what I'm going to do is, there's so many ways of doing everything. I'm going to go ahead and create a curves adjustment layer and just bring this down like this until I see this side of them the kind of the color that I think it should be. All right, and then I'm going to clip it to the boy, and then with a black brush, I'm going to take it off of them. Yep, that is crazy. The brush a little smaller here. He's going to have light all over this. His arm here. And maybe a piece of that right there will get a little bit of light. It might just, not really. Alright, so it's a good starting point. And just bring this back up a little bit. Something like that. Create another curves adjustment layer. Don't be afraid of creating these. And bring it down again. Clipping it to the boy. You can click this to clip it. And this time I'm going to invert it. Control I. And I'm going to paint it in with a white brush back here, where the shadow would really be stronger. At 20% right here. Let me just erase what I did there. Okay, about 20%. Doesn't need to be that strong right there. And on this side of his leg. And, you know, we don't want to, right inside his shirt right here where that flap is. Alright, there you have it. I know I'm babbling a little bit, but actually I do that. So I'm gonna just 10% right here. Try to make that transition a little better. Clicking here on this layer mask with black and a 10%. I'm gonna try and remove some of that right off his face. Just doesn't need to be that dark. Okay, so we got a little bit of dodge and burn on the boy. Let's do the bear. So scrolling down above the bear, create a curves adjustment layer and bring it up. That's a little much. And we're going to paint on it with a white brush. We're going to invert it first and then paint it on with a white brush. So right where the light would hit it at 100%. Just looking for the highlights, maybe creating a few highlights out of some midtones. I like this. Just bring the edge of his face out a little bit. And you got to be careful because you'll be adjusting the shape of the face if you do too much. All right. So something like that. Just paint it in. And that's going to do it for the highlights. And then create another curves adjustment layer. They're my friends. I like them. And bring down this and bring over the darks. Not so much with the darks. We're mostly just dealing with bringing the lights down. Alright, invert it with a soft brush. We're going to make the brush a little bigger at 10% and a little bigger here. And start painting in. Maybe 10% is too slow. We're going to just paint it in right here. Try to make a bit of a gradient across here. In between here and the boy, the bear would be blocking this light. So we're going to put it at 100% right here and just create a shadow right along there where the bear would be blocking that light. And that boy might be blocking a little bit light on the bear. And then at 100%, I'm going to go around the edges here a little bit smaller. I don't want it to be too much. Just getting rid of, knocking down the highlight that's there because there was some light in the original picture. A little bigger. There we go. Just knock down that highlight. And E, the eraser tool. Just erase like that. Yeah, maybe that's realistic and maybe it isn't. So brush tool again, nice and soft and big. Okay, with white. And all right, let's just check my brush here. Yeah, I have the bright brush, nice and big. All right. Okay, then we'll make a curves adjustment layer above the stump layer anyway, and with a brush, black brush at 30%, actually it's going to be a white brush, I'm going to bring that down and invert it, and then painting with a white brush, just going to add some shadow back here, so with a white brush there, and start painting. This is going to be the bear's shadow, so something like that. And since we're going to go back to the bear, and is this the layer that's darker? Yes. And we're going to click on the layer mask, painting with white, and I want to drop this down a little bit more. Alright, so there we've got highlights on the bear and shadows on the bear. I think that's looking pretty good. So the next step is going to be to take a little attention off of that dog. See, he's a little bright right there, and he's going to take attention away from the bear and the boy. So we're going to use this layer mask and paint with 10% opacity and just put a spot over him. Make it 30% opacity and something like that. Just a nice fade so he's just not that prominent anymore. Now we're up in what I call the finishing layers. So group these together and say finish. Alright. And you don't have to name layers or anything. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. Especially if I'm doing a tutorial and showing people, I need to keep things organized. So in this finishing layer, there's some things that I'd like to do. I'm going to take this photo filter and bring it up a little bit. You could bring it up to 100% and it would do that. But I'm just wanting to give it just a little more than I'm seeing. A little more orange, I like that. And what we're going to do now is above this, I'm going to add a blank layer. I'm going to use a brush that I got from DeviantArt, and so I'll put a link to that in the comments. So it's a light brush. You don't really need to use this. This is just going to be a quick fix here. There's lots of ways to add light beams, and other tutorials I have can show you those. So here it is. If we paint with white, actually I'm going to paint with more of a yellowish orangish color, something like that probably. We're going to do a couple of things real quick. I'm going to have to change the direction, not that. So I want the light to come in at about that direction, and definitely the size is going to be a lot bigger. So let's just see what that looks like. Click. There we go. I'm going to click right in the middle of this scene once, just like that. And then I'm going to hit Control T and size this up just a little bit more. Bring it down like this. Coming out a little bit more. Just nice and big. I think I like that. Hit Enter. Adjust the opacity of it down a little bit, because, you know, it's just sun rays, it's not laser beams. Alright, and then Maybe that's a little too low for my taste. I want a little more laser beam action. All right. And so then there's another brush that I really like. Same brush pack. It's called Debris. Then let's just see what it does. Painting on a new layer. We don't want it to be on the light layer, so we can adjust it separately. And just add some dust in here. That bear looks like it's got mites now, right? What I'm going to do is show you how to do something with a brush. I'm going to increase scattering. So there's the brush. The scattering, I want it to scatter more, just like that. And close that. And then when you paint, make the brush a little smaller so that the specks are smaller. I'm going to Control Z over those and just paint again. So it's scattering nicely. And it's specks of dust that are picked up by the light. I think that's working out really good. Alright, and one more layer here. And I'm going to paint with a regular soft round brush. Put it nice and big. We're going to change the color here to our soft light. Okay, I'm going to paint with the brush. I'm going to tap right here. And then I'm going to hit Control T on that layer. And it's going to let me make it nice and big and bring it over here. I can make it bigger. Like that. Kind of like that. Alright. So, last stage here. We're going to go ahead and create kind of a vignette. And the way I want to do that is add a layer here. And we're going to make it multiply. I'm going to paint with black and make this a little bit smaller. What we're going to do is, I don't want to paint any darkness in here as the light's coming in, but this back here I'm going to paint with 20% opacity. This back here is going to be dark because there's plenty of light coming in, and not back here though. Alright, and then right here we want to highlight that light coming in by darkening up some of this. The bear is going to be casting some shadow, something like this. And just thought of something here. Let's go ahead and change the color from black to something more of a dark brown. Kind of a reddish, something like that. Let's see what happens when we paint with that. Kind of liking that. I'm making some final adjustments with this to things that shouldn't be light. Alright. Just gonna play a little bit here. Like that. Alright. And I think we have a pretty fair composite here. What happens now is the compositor looks at it and says, well, I think this or I think that, you know, and that's what I do. Thinking there'd be a little more shadow on that rock there, right, on this plant here. Just all kinds of things. So really I'm done. I will take another hour. You know, I might get up and walk away, come back later, take a look at it, see if I like the colors. If I don't, I think right now this is a little too yellow. It needs to be more brown, but I don't want to take the time. I don't want to take your time to change that. So and make it a little more brown here, a little less yellow, a little more red, and then drop a little more there. That's a bit desaturating, isn't it? I would, again, I would show you, but I don't want to take up your time. I do want to take up your time. So the image is pretty much done. If you have any questions, let me know. If you like the tutorial, then like it. If you want to see the next tutorial, make sure you subscribe. Just click that subscribe button and then click the little bell icon, and you'll be notified when I make the next tutorial. So I appreciate any comments you make, good or bad. If you think that I did something wrong, then let me know, because I need some constructive criticism too. So thank you very much. Have a good day.